What you're about to hear will completely change how you see Africa. This is not just another news story. This is history being made right now in real time. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss the most important transformation happening on the African continent today. Before I tell you what just happened in Burkina Faso, I need you to do something for me. If you care about Africa's future, if you believe in true independence, if you want to see a continent finally free from dependency, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because what I'm about to reveal is just the beginning, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Now let me tell you about the yam revolution that's sending shockwaves across West Africa. On Saturday, January 24th, 2026, something extraordinary happened in the small town of Leo in Burkina Faso's Sicily province. More than 52 farmers gathered to celebrate what officials are calling a bumper harvest. Yams, mountains of yams, piled high under colorful sheds, representing not just food, but freedom. The highest guest of honor was His Excellency Bassolma Bazié, Burkina Faso's ambassador to the Sahel Confederation, representing Captain Ibrahim Traoré himself. And what he announced sent a clear message to the entire world. Burkina Faso is done depending on others. Burkina Faso will feed itself, and soon Burkina Faso will feed others. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. Yams? Why should I care about yams? Let me tell you exactly why this matters, and why this is the most important story coming out of Africa right now. Thomas Sankara, the legendary revolutionary who transformed Burkina Faso in the 1980s, had a famous saying. He said, "He who feeds you controls you." Think about that for a moment. He who feeds you controls you. For decades, African nations have been dependent on food imports, dependent on foreign aid, dependent on the goodwill of former colonial powers who ship grain with one hand while extracting resources with the other. This dependency isn't accidental, it's by design. When you control a nation's food supply, you control that nation. Period. Sankara understood this. In just 4 years, from 1983 to 1987, he transformed Burkina Faso from a hungry nation into a food self-sufficient country. The United Nations itself declared that Burkina Faso could feed itself. Cereal production doubled. 10 million trees were planted. The impossible became possible. And then in 1987, Sankara was assassinated. His revolution was murdered, and everything he built was systematically destroyed. For nearly 40 years, Burkina Faso went backwards. The Traore regime, backed by France, dismantled Sankara's agricultural programs. The country became dependent again. Dependent on rice imports, dependent on food aid, dependent on the very system Sankara had fought against. But now, something incredible is happening. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is completing what Sankara started. And the numbers don't lie. Listen to this carefully. In his December 31st, 2025 address to the nation, President Traoré announced that Burkina Faso has achieved food self-sufficiency, not as a goal, not as a hope, as a reality. The 2025-2026 agricultural season produced 7.14 million tons of cereals. That's a 17.6% increase from the previous season. And here's the number that matters most. That production covers 126.4% of national needs. Let me repeat that. 126%. Burkina Faso isn't just feeding itself anymore. It's producing surplus. For the first time in nearly 4 decades, yield per hectare has increased by 35 to 40%. since Traore launched his agricultural offensive in 2023. How did this happen? How did a landlocked Sahel nation, battling terrorism and sanctions, achieve what decades of Western aid programs couldn't? The answer is simple: political will, national vision, and the courage to break free from the colonial economic model. Let me break down exactly what Traore's government has done. First, mechanization. For decades, farmers in Burkina Faso worked with basic hand tools, sometimes not even that. The previous governments talked about tractors, but never delivered. Traore didn't talk, he acted. Initially, more than 400 tractors were distributed to farmers across the country. For the 2025-2026 season, the government added 608 more tractors and 1,102 tillers. Agricultural engineers who used to sit in city offices were transferred to the countryside to work directly with farmers. Where did the money come from? This is the part that will make you understand why the West is so threatened by what's happening in Burkina Faso. Traore nationalized gold mines. He took back control of Burkina Faso's mineral wealth from foreign corporations. A London-listed company lost 2 mines. A state-owned refinery was built. And that money, $179 million, went directly into buying agricultural machinery. From China, not from France. The symbolism is powerful. Gold that used to enrich foreign shareholders now buys tractors for Burkinabe farmers. Resources that were extracted for centuries are finally being used to build national food sovereignty. Second, the government established cooperative platforms. Farmers like Yago Abdu, one of the exhibitors at the Leo Festival, praised how the new system allows them to discuss challenges and opportunities together. They're not isolated anymore. They're organized. They're supported. They're empowered. Third, strategic seed procurement. Burkina Faso imported high-quality seed yams from Côte d'Ivoire to jumpstart domestic production. This isn't dependency. This is smart investment. You buy the seeds once, you grow your own forever. Fourth, targeted subsidies. Fertilizers are being distributed at subsidized prices. The government understands that you have to invest in farmers before you can expect them to produce. This is basic economics that Western-backed governments somehow never figured out. Fifth, water management. Plans for 2026 include expanded irrigation, water retention projects, and aquaculture. In the Sahel, where drought has devastated communities for decades, controlling water means controlling survival. Now let me tell you why Ghana is nervous. Ghana is the world's second largest yam producer after Nigeria. They produce nearly 8 million tons per year. And for decades, one of their biggest customers has been Burkina Faso. Every week, long-haul trucks laden with yams line up at the border posts of Ghana's Upper East and Upper West regions. They cross into Burkina Faso, where the yams are sold in markets across the country. This trade is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Ghana exported over $441 million worth of goods to Burkina Faso in 2023. A significant portion of that was agricultural products, yams, cereals, processed foods. But now, Burkinabe farmers like Zisi and Idrisu are saying openly that increased government support could soon boost production enough to significantly cut down on yam imports from Ghana. This is not a threat. This is a natural consequence of a nation finally taking its food sovereignty seriously. And honestly, this is exactly how it should be. For too long, African nations have been told to specialize. Grow cash crops for export. Import your food. Let the market decide. This advice, pushed by the IMF and World Bank, created a continent of dependent nations. Traore is rejecting that model entirely. His government's strategy focuses on 8 priority areas: rice, corn, potatoes, wheat, fish, livestock, poultry, and mangoes. Notice what's missing from that list? Cash crops for European markets. This isn't about growing cocoa for Belgian chocolatiers. This is about growing food for Burkina Faso families. Marc Gansonre, a farmer and member of the National Transitional Assembly, put it best. He said, "It's as if we have a Sankara. Sankara has awakened. In his time, most people didn't understand his vision. But today, there has been an awakening, and this government has effectively stimulated that awakening. Sankara has awakened." That's not just poetry. That's reality. Let me give you some historical context so you understand the magnitude of what's happening. In 1983, when Thomas Sankara took power, Burkina Faso was called Upper Volta. It was one of the poorest countries on earth, dependent on food aid, dependent on France, dependent on everyone and everything. Sankara changed the country's name to Burkina Faso, which means land of upright people in the local languages. He believed that a free people must first be able to feed themselves. He launched sweeping agrarian reforms. Land was redistributed to peasants who actually worked it. He rejected food aid, demanding instead tractors, not grain. He understood that aid creates dependency while investment creates independence. Within 4 years, cereal production doubled from 800,000 tons in 1983 to 1.7 million tons by 1987. The UN declared Burkina Faso food self-sufficient. He planted 10 million trees to fight desertification. He vaccinated millions of children. He built schools and health clinics. All of this threatened powerful interests. France, the IMF, the World Bank, the corrupt African elites who benefited from the old system. On October 15, 1987, Thomas Sankara was assassinated. His closest friend, Blaise Compaoré, betrayed him. France is widely believed to have been involved. The revolution died that day. For 27 years, Compaoré ruled Burkina Faso as a loyal French ally. Everything Sankara built was destroyed. The country returned to dependency. Poverty deepened. Jihadist insurgencies took root in neglected rural areas. Then, in 2022, a 33-year-old captain named Ibrahim Traoré seized power in a popular coup, and everything changed. Traoré didn't just take power, he took responsibility. He kicked out French military forces. He closed French military bases. He ended the colonial security arrangements that had kept Burkina Faso under French influence for decades. He turned to new partners: Russia, China, countries willing to deal with Africa as equals, not as subjects. He launched Operation Lull Mosca, Ice Wall, and reclaimed dozens of towns from terrorist groups. Thousands of internally displaced people have returned to their homes. They're farming again, building again, living again. And now, food self-sufficiency, the final piece of Sankara's unfinished puzzle. The ambassador at the Leo Festival, Basoma Bazier, said it clearly. Strengthening domestic food production is a strategic priority aimed at reducing dependence on imports and opening new export opportunities in the near future. Did you catch that last part? Export opportunities. Burkina Faso isn't just planning to feed itself, it's planning to become a food exporter. A landlocked Sahel nation, surrounded by hostile neighbors and facing Western sanctions, is planning to export food. This is revolutionary because if Burkina Faso succeeds, if Mali succeeds, if Niger succeeds, then the entire narrative collapses. The narrative that says Africa needs the West. The narrative that says military governments can't deliver development. The narrative that says breaking from France leads to chaos. Traore is proving all of that wrong, in real time, with real results. The alliance of Sahel states formed by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger represents a new model for Africa. Sovereignty first, food security second. Everything else follows. In December 2025, Traore assumed the chairmanship of the AES. In his speech, he declared, "The AES belongs to all Africans who desire sovereignty, independence, and total freedom." The bloc is planning to establish a common market, a unified passport system, an AES investment bank. These aren't dreams. These are plans being implemented right now. Let me address something important. Some people will watch this video and say I'm being too positive. They'll say Traore is a military dictator. They'll say his government has problems. They'll say food self-sufficiency claims should be verified independently. And you know what? Some of those criticisms may have merit. No government is perfect. No leader is without flaws. But here's what I know for certain. The previous system wasn't working. Decades of Western-backed democracy produced nothing but poverty, dependency, and terrorism. The old model failed completely. Traore is trying something different. He's investing in farmers. He's distributing tractors. He's building cooperatives. He's achieving results that his predecessors never achieved. Should he hold elections eventually? Yes, probably. Is his government perfect? No, of course not. But is he feeding his people? Is he building infrastructure? Is he fighting for his nation's sovereignty? The answer is yes. And at the end of the day, that matters more than Western lectures about democracy. A hungry population can't vote their way to freedom. A dependent nation can't democratize its way to sovereignty. First, you secure your food supply. Then, everything else becomes possible. Sankara understood this. Traore understands this. And soon, all of Africa will understand this. Let me tell you about what's coming next. The Leo Yam Festival wasn't just a celebration. It was a statement of intent. Burkina Faso is just getting started. Plans for 2026 include expanded land development, more water retention projects, aquaculture expansion, fodder crop production for livestock, agro-processing facilities to add value before export. The country's first tomato processing plant, inaugurated in 2024 in Bobo Dioulasso, already has 20% state participation and 80% community capital. This is the model: public-private partnership, community ownership, value addition within the country, not abroad. Traore's government has also nationalized land. In 2025, he declared that all land belongs to the state. Foreigners are banned from owning rural land. The land will serve the Burkinabe people, not foreign corporations. This is what real sovereignty looks like: control over your land, control over your food, control over your destiny. Ghana should take note, not with fear, but with inspiration. Because here's the truth. If Ghana's yam farmers lose their Burkina Faso market, that's not Traore's fault. That's the consequence of Ghana's own government failing to build domestic food security, failing to support farmers, failing to break free from the colonial economic model. Every African nation should be doing what Burkina Faso is doing: growing their own food, mechanizing their agriculture, supporting their farmers, building real independence. If that means less cross-border trade in the short term, so be it. National food sovereignty is more important than trade statistics. And honestly, if every African nation achieves food self-sufficiency, then regional trade will actually increase, because you'll be trading surplus, not dependency. You'll be trading from strength, not weakness. This is the future Sankara envisioned. This is the future Traore is building. Let me leave you with this. Thomas Sankara once said, "You cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness." What Traore is doing seems like madness to the Western establishment. Kicking out French troops? Madness. Nationalizing gold mines? Madness. Investing in peasant farmers instead of export crops? Madness. But this madness is producing results. Real, measurable, undeniable results. 7.14 million tons of cereals. 126% of national needs. 35 to 40% yield increases per hectare. 608 tractors distributed. $179 million invested in agriculture from nationalized resources. This is what African leadership looks like when it actually serves African people. I want you to think about something. Burkina Faso is one of the poorest countries on earth. It's landlocked. It's facing terrorist insurgencies. It's under Western pressure and sanctions. Every obstacle you can imagine stands in its way. And yet, it's achieving food self-sufficiency. What does that say about richer, more stable African nations that haven't achieved the same? What does that say about decades of foreign aid that produce nothing but dependency? What does that say about the Western development model? It says that the model was never designed to help Africa. It was designed to control Africa. Traore is breaking that control. Farmer by farmer, tractor by tractor, yam by yam. Now I have a question for you. After everything you've just heard, do you believe Africa can achieve true independence? Do you believe the Sankara model can work? Do you believe Traore is on the right path? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, do me a favor. Share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with anyone who cares about Africa's future. The mainstream media isn't telling this story. They're too busy focusing on coups and crises. They don't want you to see the progress. They don't want you to see the revolution. But we see it. We document it. We share it. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Join this community of people who believe in a different Africa. Because change is happening right now, whether the world notices or not, and you can be part of it. One more thing before I go. In January 2026, just days before the Leo Yam Festival, Burkina Faso authorities announced they had thwarted a coup and assassination attempt against Traore. This wasn't the first attempt. It probably won't be the last. The forces that killed Sankara have not disappeared. They're still out there, still working to prevent Africa from achieving true independence. Traore knows this. He said in his New Year's address, "We honor our defenders, our soldiers, our volunteers for the defense of the homeland, and all those who gave their lives so that Burkina Faso may stand." He's not naive. He knows the risks. He's choosing to move forward anyway. That's courage. That's leadership. That's what Africa needs. Sankara was killed at 37. He accomplished more in 4 years than most leaders accomplish in 40. Traore is now 36. He's already accomplishing things people said were impossible. The question isn't whether his vision will succeed. The question is whether we will support it, whether we will amplify it, whether we will stand with those fighting for a free Africa. I know where I stand. I hope you do too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of this movement. The revolution continues. Sankara's dream lives, and Africa is rising. See you in the next video.